Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Hollywood Matrimony Live. Thank you for joining us live on Facebook and YouTube. Don't forget to go find us on the Instagram and Twitter as well. Go like, share, subscribe, tell everyone you know, and that's all you need now. Really?
Goodness, sorry.
Really?
Shut up.
Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about movies. I know that's shocking on our movie show, but what I need to go do right now is go share. Because it's going to tell me, hey, look, Hollywood Matrimony's live. Go tell everyone you know.
But are they?
They really are. They really are, yes. All right, I want to share. Write a post.
We got to make some ketchup stuff.
We're making ketchup?
Yes, we're going to make ketchup. Because
nice.
There was a couple things we didn't get to talk about the last time because we ended up not having a show when she wasn't.
That was 2 weeks ago.
I know, so we're bringing some of that stuff in.
No, we're still catching up from that day because last week we had like a really long show.
This isn't going to be a super long show. We're just going to bring in something that we didn't get a chance to talk about, but it also fits the Halloween month theme.
Oh, my nose is so red. I'm having a bad allergy day, so I apologize. You're going to see me wipe my boogies, but.
A lot of times I would let it go, but it was another one where we watched two movies back to back in specific preparation.
Oh, yes. Do you have those to?
I don't.
Dang it.
Did you not put it on there?
It's on there, but that's not the original for you. I thought you were going to hold it up.
The original I have is not the right cover anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Fine. And
I have a bootleg.
Something actually, we do not support in Hollywood Matrimony.
I take that back. I have the actual disc that was sent to me as part of something else.
When they do this.
And then I had a friend make me a cover. But the cover he made was a remake version. So when I went to look at it, I had to make sure it was the right disc. And I'm like, this is not the original.
This is one of the things you guys need to know. So everybody's like, this just happened. Our son's like, well, you get free movies. Okay. Sometimes we do, but you know what? Sometimes we don't. And sometimes we get these things that are just like a disc in a slipcase.
I have one specific company.
No cover. No cover art.
Company that all they send me are the discs with no art, no booklets, no bonus feature discs.
You get nothing.
Sometimes they send me all the discs and nothing else. I remember one of the biggest bummers, and I was both depressed and glad at the same time.
Yeah.
Was when we were moving into this place.
Uh-huh.
They sent me the Blu-ray copy of Batman the Animated Series, the complete series, but we didn't get it because they sent it here instead of our old address before we moved here, and so somebody clearly got it, but they had only sent the discs and no box. So okay. I was like, I already owned the complete series, but I'm on DVD, but I wanted the Blu-rays, but then I was bummed out because they sent me.
And then some of our stuff went to the old house when we moved, and then that lady was all rare. You need to do a change of address. Yeah. It's like, girl. We did.
Then the second people that moved in there, we still got some. They were super nice.
They were
reached
nicer.
out. They were like, "Yeah, we got a whole bunch of stuff." And I even gave them some prizes and stuff because they were so sweet about it.
They were nice people.
So anyway,
all right, I'm gonna log in over here.
Yeah, so we got a couple stuff, and one of them, like I said, was a very specific. And we'll probably start with that one.
Okay.
It's very specific to Halloween.
It's specific.
In theory, specific. So I figured we could talk about that one too. You didn't add this on there because we didn't actually eat.
I did not.
Okay, good. So, are you ready to throw some stuff on the screen?
I'm kind of ready. Hold on.
Something else, and
hold on.
You can't say I'm ready and then tell me to hold on.
How do I make it tell it's me? Not.
I don't care. Hello. Just because you don't understand technology doesn't mean our show should stop.
Okay, I'm ready. So we're gonna go there. Hey, that's the order I had it already.
Good. So first up, we're gonna have the when you think about zombies. Okay, most people have come to understand the rules of zombies, how they are in film and everything else. But a lot of people think, they think of Shaun of the Dead, and you think of, Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and Walking Dead, and she's wearing a shirt of Day of the Dead, which this is actually, if you don't know, it's a new TV series based on this. Day of the Dead is actually a movie, in case you don't know that. It's a George Romero movie. Nice. This is a TV series based on the movie.
Sir.
That.
This is a family
She got this T-shirt, won through a contest, and we also got this really cool poster. Yeah. Anyway, but kind of the zombies have been around, I think, prior to this, obviously, in different iterations. But the movie that set the tone and the rules of zombies in what we know today is a movie called Night of the Living Dead, which everybody has heard of. Most people think they've seen it, but a lot of people have actually not seen the original Night of the Living Dead. The original Night of the Living Dead is in black and white.
Yep.
It was in, oh Lord, what year was that? Hold on, I'll pull it up over here.
Okay.
I apologize. I was ill prepared because I was
ill prepared. Yes, you were. The one we're talking about, because there's a couple.
Yeah, the original one. Come on, computer. The original was 1968.
This one? Yeah.
And not to confuse with the 1990 remake version. And I'm sure there might have been other ones. But anyway, so the reason we're talking about that movie outside of it being October and Halloween and all the fun things.
Here comes Halloween. Here comes Halloween.
They put out a new movie version of Night of the Living Dead, but in animated form called Night of the Animated Dead.
So cool.
So I thought at first, when I first heard about it and got it, I was like, okay, this is just some new zombie film. Well, it's actually an actual animated remake of the original George A. Romero classic. So you had never seen the original at all,
I
right?
hadn't, which is surprising, but I'm not as into zombies as other people. I'm more vampire werewolf.
Right.
So this was cool, but the rules of zombies, like, and they walk slow and that whole thing, like, this is the movie that tells us this.
And there's a little more to them back then than you really realize. But we actually sat down, and did a double feature back to back so we could see how connected the new one was with this other one. So let's say this first. Let's talk about really briefly on the original Night of the Living Dead. What did you think of the original movie after seeing it?
I really enjoyed it, and I like that all the things we know now, like I'm telling them like they knew, like just shoot it in the head, but that's where you know that
because of that movie.
Because of this movie. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I dug is at this time period, we're what, 68?
Yeah.
When our main protagonist is a black man, which I obviously appreciate in this time period. Like we put him front and center.
You love black men?
I do. They're nice people. But I'm just saying, like our lead guy who's trying to save everyone is a black guy, and he is not the first person to die. Okay. He makes it kind of, so I enjoyed that. I appreciated that. And that we had him there. And then
it's also one that showcases I know it's probably not the first movie to do this, but it kind of falls into this where the living are really the monsters.
Correct. That whole idea. That's what we said. That whole idea that people can be worse than the monsters outside, which we know. So I like that we dealt with that thematically. But also we're dealing with loss. We're dealing with some PTSD. The idea that women are hysterical and crazy. I mean, we're dealing with all of these sub-themes at the same time.
True statements.
All while we're being hunted by these monsters. And I like that at one point their only source of information is this old radio. And they're like, there's a radio. And they're like, oh, so they're listening to the news reports. And I like that old school thing because very War of the Worlds, where like that's your only source of information. And now I feel like some younger people may not even know what it is to listen to the news on the radio.
Well,
you have so much information coming
especially the younger crowd won't watch the original, I guarantee, because
it's black and white.
It's not super gory. It's really not scary at all.
It's interesting.
But at the time it came out, it might have been another case of like that. To me, it's kind of like watching the original Psycho. The original Psycho is not a scary movie, but at the time it came out, it terrified people. Like my mom used to talk about how that movie freaked her out. She wouldn't take a shower, and
awesome.
when I was a kid, it freaked me out. But then I watch it now, and I'm like, it's a brilliant movie. I think it's an iconic piece of cinema. It's everything about it is perfection, but I'm like, scary it is not. But that's because it's a different time period.
And then, you get to the end of the movie, and it's one of those typical that time period ending where it's like, like a very Dr. Zhivago kind of twist at the very end just to get you. And I'm like, why? Yeah,
so
that was that.
Neither one of us really,
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so we didn't really know what to expect with this new one. So we watched the original first. We're ready for it. We get ready. We jump into this new one. What did you think of the animated one?
I really like this. It's like kind of shot for shot.
It is, and the animated one, the animation is
I know you weren't too
average
excited
at best.
about it.
It's kind of, but after sitting with it a little bit, it's kind of amateurish. It's not, but it kind of is at the same time. But then it also gives you the vibe of being like a 60s animated feature.
Yes, it's a very simple style.
And it is way more violent and graphic than the original movie, which I like. It decided, okay, we're going to remake this movie, but we are going to, what can we do to make it more? Mm-hmm. We're doing what they probably would have done if they had a better budget.
Yeah.
If Romero had made the movie today before he passed away. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Or has he come back?
Oh, well, and it does. I like that, like, immediately where he's like, he's coming to get you, Barbara. And then suddenly it's like, bam, blood everywhere. Right. So, you know, there wasn't that in the original where it kind of left you like, oh, is he okay? Is he not? But in this one, it's like very clear what's going on.
Yeah, we discussed that too. We're like, he bumps his head.
Yeah.
And you're like, he could be okay. And then you watch the other one and say, that guy is dead.
He's clearly dead. So I did like this. I did like the style of it. It captured everything of the original. But I think what I like about this one comparatively in my current time period looking back is the animated one seems to move along a little bit quicker.
It's actually a shorter movie despite being the same movie.
It's exactly the same, but shorter. I understand in the original black and white, we're building tension, and we do have a lot of tension with the women and the men, the black guy with the white guys, and the kid and the whole thing. So I get it. And I think it's just the style of the time period. That's how movies were. They were a little bit more.
Well, there's that
slow. They're a little more slower. They were
just
slower.
You gotta have a lot of shots of the cars driving by and driving up and where they're going, and they always tried to create that thing that you're on the journey with them and you're going to get there. Where nowadays you can say, watch them get in the car, then you can show them pulling up at their destination, and we don't always need to see 20 minutes of driving
in between. But I mean, it's interesting. I really enjoyed this one. It's like I would watch this again.
I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did, because I seeing part of the trailer that I originally watched the animation, I thought was gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be trash, but it actually works in connection to that. And if you look at it as being the time period it's supposed to be in the movie it's remaking, I think it works. I think even Romero probably would have been like, hey, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked it. So I would check it out. How do I watch this?
I would highly recommend watching them both back to back, especially if you've never seen them. But even if you have, just get that old one fresh in your brain and then watch the new one, because then it's fun seeing the way they change up a little bit of the specific scenes and see the extra blood and see the extra gore and how they enhance it. And then it makes you imagine what they could have done if somebody remade the movie shot for shot now, but with the same actors. You know, obviously I was hoping with the animated one they were going to use the same dub track with the same actors, but they didn't. They had new actors. That would have been cooler for me.
That would have been cool.
So I was a little disappointed when I saw that they had actually had an all new voice cast, but I understand why they do it too. It's probably easier to dub and not have to be the exact moments.
Well, and it's in color, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that adds a new layer, too. I'm just because that was one of the questions.
I don't see color.
No, we were going to be like, I wonder if they'll do an animated black and white version.
Yeah.
You know, but it's in color, so
anyway,
whatever.
It's available now on Blu-ray and DVD, so just go find it, check it out.
Go find it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay,
next.
What do we got next? We can go right into that.
That's I did it in this order. That's kind of what I was thinking, but let's just go. I'm glad you're agreeing with me tonight. You're so agreeable.
I just don't have the patience to fight with you.
You must not be feeling well.
The next one's one that I've actually been kind of eager about since I heard about it some time back. I wasn't sure how it was going to be handled. I wasn't sure if it was going to be really good, because it's the kind of movie that's intriguing but could go off the rails very easily, not handled right. And it's a movie called No Man of God, starring Elijah Wood and Luke Kirby. Luke Kirby.
Frodo.
Elijah Wood is
Frodo and
the man has done so many things. Why do you only let people be Lord of the Rings? For someone who doesn't like Lord of the Rings, you force these people to stay in that world for a long time.
They were there for a long time.
It's based on the true story. It's based on the tapes and recordings and interviews and whatnot of. It's obviously not all true because there's only some of it and the reactions and things, but it's based on the true source material, if you will, of a FBI profiler who actually speaks with Ted Bundy and actually gets him to talk to him, and for all intents and purposes confess to the murders and stuff that he refused to do right up until he died. And now it's taking place while he's dealing with his appeals to the death penalty.
Correct.
So the entire movie, we're not seeing any of Ted Bundy's murders and all that stuff. He's already been caught. This is literally just two men kind of having a mental verbal standoff.
Yeah.
If you will.
Correct.
Not under the guise of trying to get a confession, under the guise of something completely different that just happens to be the confession could help as well if they do it.
Correct. So,
and I thought this guy looked a lot like Ted Bundy too. That
he did. What has he been in? He looks so familiar. I know we know him from something else, don't we? Anyhow, yeah. I mean, I'm on the IMDb. Okay. Anyhow, you guys, this movie is cray. So this time, we're in the time period. What time period are we in? I don't know what year. I don't want to make up a lie.
Oh, way back he's in The Marvelous Miss Maisel.
Oh, that's why I know him. He's a comedian. He's so funny.
Don't say the comedian. Lenny Bruce is an icon.
Okay, the amazing, famously comedic man, Lenny Bruce. Anyways, he's so good in that. And I think that's why this is throwing me off, because I'm like, I know this guy, and I kept thinking, dang. Anywho, so Elijah Wood, Frodo, is FBI agent Bill Hagmaier. Here's the thing.
He's Quagmire?
Hagmaier.
Oh.
This is at the very beginning when the FBI created the profiling department. The whole thing, like what is it called? It's a whole thing. Criminal profiles. It didn't even exist until here. So
Who are you pointing at?
My people. So this is at the beginning of that. And basically, they asked for agents that wanted to volunteer to begin doing this whole study on profiling. Could you create criminal profiles? So they were handing out cases.
Yeah, because they're trying to make like a book / manual.
A manual to train agents.
So that he wasn't necessarily sent to get a confession.
No, he was just sent to talk to him.
And nobody wanted to talk to Bundy.
Nobody wanted, because they're like, hey, who wants to talk to this murderer? Okay, Ted Bundy. And they're like,
nobody wanted to talk to Bundy because Bundy didn't like it. Federal FBI agents. He would not talk to anyone.
Correct. So he gets in there and they have a little debate, kickoff thing, and he finally agrees, okay, I'll talk to you.
Well, he gets him to a series of letters first. Yeah, he says he wants you to write him a letter.
Yeah.
And so he starts writing letters, and then he agrees to meet him. And you can tell that he only agreed to meet him to tell him he wasn't going to meet with him.
Correct, because then they have like a little verbal face-off. Here's the thing, though, that gets me is I understand when you're dealing with these kinds of things, it's important to build a rapport with the criminal, per se. He was convicted.
What?
And man, that Ted Bundy guy was so smart. That's the thing that's kind of crazy, and why I was like, Elijah Wood, don't say anything. Because at one point he's talking to him about his family and his kid. I'm like, why would you say that?
Because Ted Bundy didn't look like the serial killer you would think.
Mm-mm.
He looked like he was
a normal, nice dude.
He was a nice looking man.
Didn't he have a lady and everything?
Yeah, he had a woman and a kid.
Was that other?
That's the Zac Efron movie.
Okay, and the thing that got caught,
which I wrote in my review, that I think that movie, even though it's completely not related to this, and it's I think it's a good companion.
Yeah, it helped
because
me
if you watch the other one, that one's all about his
life.
Well, his life and his killings and getting caught and going to jail or whatever. And this one is almost like the secondary half of that.
Mm-hmm. Which I think what happens after.
Yeah, because I don't remember now, but I don't think you get a lot of that element.
No, all you get in this one is that where they got him convicted on the murder or rape of a 12-year-old girl, but not everything else necessarily.
And that's where kind of this one.
That's where this one picks up, because they knew he had to have been involved in multiple things, but he never confessed to how many there were. And I don't know that we still really know. You know, throughout the movie, he's like, give me a number. He's like,
there's a shady minister. 30, 40, a shady minister in this movie that made me more mad than anything else.
Dr. Dobson.
I was madder at the minister story part of it than I was at Bundy. Because that was just some shady shit, man.
Oh, we'll get there.
We're there now.
Okay, let's talk about that. So
essentially, there's a moment when they're finally getting him to. They've had their interviews. They've created rapport. It's starting to get out there. It's getting closer to the appeals and what their judge is going to decide. The judge wants to hear from different people to try to figure out if Bundy's crazy, if he's not, and whatever. Should he stop the execution or whatever? And so different people start latching on with his attorneys and stuff to speak with him. And there's this minister guy who I call Dr. Douchebag.
It's Dr. Dobson.
Same thing. Who is going to do some kind of an interview with him, a video interview kind of thing. And it ends up being like a couple hours long or something. but with the understanding that his whole thing is going to help.
It's a 55-minute interview. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah, which he was supposedly agreed to do this in conjunction with helping to get him off the death penalty.
Correct, because he'd been on death row for like 8 years
like
or
10
something.
years, I
10
think.
years.
Yeah.
And finally, whoever the governor is like, kill him next week.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, you have 7 days. Boom. And so
it becomes a
he
race against
thought
time.
that if he went to this minister and professes now he wants to repent and all this stuff, that maybe they would give him an extension or change his mind, and that didn't happen.
And that's what the minister wanted to do. He was like,
well, that's what he said.
Yeah, he said that until it was over. Then he comes out and he goes, oh, no, we were never going to do that. I just wanted to help him find Jesus. And now what I heard wasn't, I was trying to help this man. I heard, I'm using this to benefit myself.
Correct.
Which is exactly what he was
because
doing.
that whole interview bit basically boiled down to, I'm blaming porn for my problems.
Yeah, this
which
Minister Douchebag basically took his own agenda of what he used when he preached.
He was against pornography.
Which I'm not saying what he preached against was right or wrong. I'm saying he used the agenda to his platform, essentially like a politician, and twisted the story as he was interviewing him to work in his direction, so that he can now use it in his own platform.
See, porn is bad.
Yeah, and say, look, Ted
makes
Bundy
you a serial killer.
Why he's Ted Bundy.
And that's not what it was. I mean, you're not familiar, but I am with Dr. Dobson. And
you know what I'm familiar with?
Well, his thing was called Focus on the Family, was his program. There was a radio show, I
Focus
believe
on
a TV show.
Shifty Business.
So the whole reason he wanted to get to the supposed core of why Ted Bundy was like he was because he wanted to say, look, I'm about families and porn is bad. So he was using it as his own agenda. I know, obviously.
I hate that. Like, I'm not against religion. I'm not against people being anti-porn. I'm not against anybody having their beliefs and doing their thing. What I don't like is people lying about their agendas and what they're doing.
About the reason why.
Yeah, if he had come in there and said, look, let me speak with him on his situation, and then we'll see, is there anything I think we can do toward him? That man obviously wouldn't have got him what he wanted. But he blatantly lied and created a thing and wasted everybody's time for his own agenda so that he could spin it on what really wasn't even truth.
Correct.
Which to me makes his ministerial, I don't know if that's the word, but I'm going to use it, his ministerial efforts more full of crap. Because even if he might be taking something that's a truthful situation, but now he's layered it with his own thing, what he's created, not truth. And in turn is why so many people argue and don't trust religion.
Yeah.
Because, every minister or every church or whatever, they twist whatever their thing is to their agenda. Yeah. Like, it's rare that you go to a church and the church is just like open and says, here's the word of God. Let's read it. Let's discuss it and all decide what we think it means and how it makes you feel. No, it's usually the minister stands up there and says, this is what it says. This is what you should do in the end. That's why every person in every church has a different belief of the same thing. Mm-hmm. I know when we discuss stuff, I was taught certain things in the Baptist church growing up one way. You've talked about them another way, and they don't always agree, but they're coming from the same thing. Yeah. That's why religion is a problem.
Yeah,
because
I don't know if it's a problem.
No, but I mean, it's a problem because there's not a unified front. It's like everything else.
Yeah, I think if you become crazed and fanatical, then it can be a problem.
And again, you're dealing with things, without going too far into tangent of that, you're dealing with things that are based on faith and not fact. And there's elements of that can be interpreted. There's some things that people firmly believe this story is exactly what happened, and here's the story, and this is why. There's other elements of this story is actually a metaphor to what happened, and they both have the same meaning, which this one makes more sense, but everybody latches onto this one. And if you question this, then you're completely wrong, and vice versa. It gets too convoluted and makes too many people fight over nonsense. Back to Ted Bundy.
He was crazy, man. And I think that's what they were trying to see, like, what is the reason? Like, this whole criminal profile thing is like, what is the reason? And there may not be a reason. I think it's just he's crazy. At the end of it, I mean, there's this whole discussion. I'm not going to spoil it, but there is this whole discussion, and Ted Bundy's like, well, did you figure out why I did it? He's like, yeah. And it's not what you thought, but
there's an interesting dynamic of the two people of how it starts off as one person just wants the information for this book, and he's intrigued as the profiler to really understand. He would love to get a confession. But that's not really why he's there. He's more interested in the mind of Ted Bundy. The guy that doesn't trust him at all. And as the story moves on and the longer they spend together, there's even an element at one point where they want to do something, but they want Elijah Wood out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And Bundy's like, no, he's going to do this. I can trust him. He's my best friend. And then you realize it's taking a turn. Even Elijah Wood character is like,
I'm like, ooh.
what? But then you start seeing that he's connected to him too, and they start sharing personal information.
This is where it gets real, like, ew, to me, because it's like, you're there to do a job. And I understand you got to get in and you got to make them feel like you're friends, but that to me is so scary.
But see, and this wasn't one of those weird twists and turns where
it's very...
you see Bundy is really playing him.
No, I think he was
really
legit.
started to have some kind of a weird connection. And
they were friends, which is so odd.
I think one of my favorite, well, there's two moments that I really love, and without spoiling them, but one element is a discussion about the difference between the agent and the serial killer and how they're exactly the same. The only difference is one's acting on an impulse, the other one hasn't. And
the other one has a badge that makes it okay.
Yeah, but he talks about, you can easily do what I'm doing. You just haven't, And then there's an element at the end that I think is not only the perfect cap to this whole story between their dialogue, but Elijah Wood is brilliant in that sequence.
Oh my gosh.
And it's kind of finally, without saying what they do, he's finally getting to dive deep into the mind of Ted Bundy in a way that no one else ever would be able to.
And if you notice, he's sharing something, but he never confesses that he did anything specific to anyone. He's just like, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
I may follow this girl home and just stalk her for a few days. And he goes through
the details
how
of
his
the
mind thinks and what he would do.
And then the way this film
not saying he did it.
Yeah,
but
at the end of that, the way it's shifting
good.
back and forth to two, how they're connecting physically as they do it. Well, no,
I'm gonna hold your hand.
No, thank you.
He's telling him the story.
Yeah, no, okay. But
then you see Elijah Wood's reaction.
Yeah, and the things he's thinking about, and different things throughout the movie, and there's these little subtle moments in the movie when Bundy's talking about something, and it may be somebody in the room while they're talking. It may be a flash to outside of the thing while he's talking that starts making it more impactful. That
one girl,
you could easily miss it if you're not really paying attention.
Me. Like she was there's just this girl standing there. Okay, she's standing there holding some papers.
She's like the assistant to somebody.
She is having this visceral reaction, but she is completely like still, like she is frozen.
At the risk of sounding silly, it's like someone who's about to crap themselves. But she's making no reaction.
I feel like she's frozen in fear.
Yeah, because she's like shaking.
So you can see like she's shaking and her eyes are about. I thought she was gonna bust out just screaming.
But here's the thing about it is you don't know why.
Right.
You don't know is it she's being affected by what he's saying? Is she somehow on a personal level experiencing something similar? Is the other person has done something to her to make her uncomfortable? Is it everything at once?
And then you get that same thing with that moment with Elijah Wood where he's telling him, and Elijah Wood, you're getting to hear and see his inner monologue of like, okay, don't react, don't say anything, don't look. But I mean, he's also kind of frozen in fear just hearing this because he's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting to understand. Anyhow, crazy movie.
I really like this movie.
It's good.
It's not one that's a multiple view movie. It's one of those that once you've seen
it's a talkie.
Yeah, it's all talkie. It's not really exciting. There's no big twist ending.
No.
It's just, it is what it is. But it's how it's handled, the way it plays out. It very much reminded me of like Frost Nixon when that came out, which is literally about two people talking and the building of the relationship, and then all the little elements that goes around behind it. And were you happy with how it ended?
I was happy how it ended. We found out about the FBI agent, and he is.
You know what I wish they would do?
He's considered the #1 foremost criminal profiler.
You know what I wish they would
have
done something like this? Is like when they're showing the stuff at the end of him, and they're talking about this is what he's. Well, no, not even pictures. I wish they would have gone. This is what he does now, and all that stuff that's there.
Mm-hmm.
This is who he is. This is what he's doing now. This is what his cases he's been involved in. Blah blah blah. And it says Ted Bundy's dead. They should have
done something like Ted Bundy confessed to approximately 30 murders, but I'm sure there were more.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Anyway,
he
it's available now on Blu-ray and DVD.
Because the fact that he wanted to decapitate, but he kept some of the heads, which is kind of gross. I don't know.
So anyway, check it out.
Check it out.
I'm all in for anything about serial killers. Anyway,
it's a good read. It's a good watch. I mean, we learned something. So. It's an interesting thing.
Moving on. What we got next?
Okay, next is this. Are you okay with
in
that?
a movie that's completely not related to that in
You
any way or form,
guys, but this movie,
we're diving into the latest DC animated movie.
Injustice.
So to give you some backstory, if you don't know about Injustice, which you knew none of this.
I knew nothing.
Injustice is based on a video game that kind of flips up everything on its head in the DC universe. And then they've since gone on and made some miniseries, like comic series and graphic novels, that kind of thing. And the premise is basically something happens and Superman crosses the line and kills somebody.
He snaps.
Which then ends up, he basically kind of snaps, tired of everybody's crap, and has decided, I'm Superman, I'm going to fix the world. So what does that do? That divides and conquers. It's very much Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, very much like you would expect to be Captain America running, with the government and stuff, and Iron Man anti. This is kind of the same kind of thing as you would accept Superman to be Mr. Let's follow the rules, and Batman go against it. It's flipped. Superman is borderline dictator god mentality.
Crazed.
And Batman's like, you can't do that. So then we got to divide down the middle of the heroes and the villains and which people are on which side. And that's our story thus far.
It's insane. I'm going to tell you. I had no idea what this is about. I was watching it by myself. You didn't tell me anything about it. You're like, hey, watch this new DC movie, which I love all their animated movies.
And I told her when you start this, I went to pick up dinner. And I said, go ahead and start it. I'd already seen it. I said, you go ahead and start it. And I'm like, just know you're going to be like, what?
Like 10 minutes in, people start dying. And it's like main characters to people and heroes. I mean, people, there's blood everywhere. Craziness ensues. He snaps. He starts killing people. And it was like, we're going to fix the world. And it goes back to the whole thing that we've been talking about recently with the happenings in our own society of like, okay, we're going to make everyone do the right thing. But who decides what's right?
Yeah.
Who decides?
Well, in this story, for those of the hardcore fans of Injustice, the game and whatnot, this is an original story. If I'm not mistaken, this is it's not taken from the actual stories. It's kind of its own thing with the same, if you know the story, the same catalyst happens that leads into why Superman does what he does. But the rest of it kind of goes off its own tangent. And does
it goes off the rails here.
Yes.
It's cray. But yeah, very much Civil War where you have the two sides and very unexpected people on each side. I mean, even some of your, what you would consider to be your nemesis are on the side of the good guys, supposedly. I mean, it kind of
depends on where you stand, because one of the things I like the way it's handled. This movie's been getting bashed,
really,
by a lot of the DC fans, but it's because it's not.
It's not story.
Apparently, from my understanding, it got leaked early by somebody.
Why did y'all do that?
The fans that saw it immediately said how much it sucked. It was awful because it didn't match the exact storyline.
Right.
And I'm like, who gives a crap? Just most people don't even know the Injustice story, so it's not really affecting that many people.
I understood what was
but it's also one of these, if you don't know, they've been dealing with the multiverse long before the Marvel, I believe.
Correct.
They've got like 70 billion different Earths.
Yeah.
So that's
and it's so funny. Each Earth thinks they're Earth One.
Yeah. So that's kind of what this is. This is another one of the Earths, and they actually deal with that some too. And they do some stuff with characters that never happened to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But it works for the story they're doing, and it's the same idea and fear of everything Lex Luthor had against Superman.
Yes.
Like for most people, always considered Lex Luthor as a villain, and he is. But his
could he just be a patriot looking out for the well-being of the planet?
It depends on which Lex Luthor you're dealing with. But if you go look at the core of the Lex Luthor situation with Superman, it was never about. There were some iterations of him, but it was always about the idea of not trusting somebody that had that much power.
Yes.
And there's a great miniseries that came out years ago. I think it was just called Luthor. It might be called Lex. I don't remember which one. Search both to find it. Which the whole idea was the story of Superman from Lex Luthor's eyes and why he's friend. And it all came down to one man with that much power. How do you stop him, or how is it okay? And why we should fear that. Yeah. And this movie actually takes all that and takes into account of getting rid of the ideals that Superman has as the idea of Superman, and says, okay, but he has this power, and now he's going through tragedy, and he's going through these different things, and he's so fed up and angry personally, emotionally, and
he's not well.
He sees his ability to fix it, but it does, like you said, who's to decide the things to fix, which becomes that was becoming a dictator and a
Yeah,
god.
just to extremities. Like at one point, it's like, oh, if you littered, you get to die. I mean, that's where you get to. It's insanity.
Yeah, there's a great dialogue in one sequence between him and Mr. Terrific, where he's wanting Mr. Terrific to help him with something, and Mr. Terrific is having a very calm conversation with him about the morality of what you're doing. And he's like, we got to get rid of all the guns in the world. Because you can't get rid of all the guns in the world. He goes, but if I get rid of most of them, that would help. And he goes, okay, well, are you going to get rid of all the smokers? Because more people die of smoking than guns. Are you going to get rid of speeders?
Yeah.
And then he goes all the way, are you going to get rid of...
people who don't recycle.
Yeah, people don't recycle.
Because you're killing the planet.
You know, and so he's making that point of
like
when
does it end?
Are worse than what you're trying to solve, which we're not going to see the difference by this one thing. Which ends that healthy conversation with Superman's like, you're not going to help me, are you? He goes, no, sir, I am not.
Yes, I like that.
You know, and it wasn't a fight. It was probably one of the most important dialogues in the moment.
And it kind of, which Superman movie was it where he tried to get rid of all the nuclear weapons?
That was what everybody hates. That was
but still,
part 4?
I think it's 4.
Yeah, Quest for Peace.
Anyways, it's kind of that, but obviously super
I like Nuclear Man in part 4.
This thing is just...
That was the one that was directed by Christopher Reeve.
Just know this one's cray. Anyways, the other thing I like that we explored is Batman having, in his own way, the same idea that Lex Luthor had. And we find out, which I think we've always known, Batman has
stuff on
a contingency plan on every single hero and what he knows will take them down.
That's been an ongoing thing for years. And every iteration, eventually it comes out that Batman has...
He's got every kryptonite. He's got this for this person. He's got this. I mean, he knows everybody.
Every person that comes involved, that's directly involved with the Justice League, or a hero that shows up, he has a file and or an element or weapon that can take them out. He always has a plan to do that.
I love it.
And
I just think it's so fun.
They touch base on one point where he's like, he's got a bug in one person's place. He's hacked into somebody else's technology, and they're like, looking at, when did you do this? I was like, the day we met?
Yep.
He's like, he goes, that's not important right now. The guy's like, it is to me.
Then they move on. Oh my gosh, it's so fun. It's such a good movie. And then it has all your normal heroes and villains, and then some people I didn't even know.
Yeah, so. Super hyper violent.
Which all their movies are.
It gets bloody at times. There's a couple of things in there that I could have done without. The way they dealt with Nightwing stuff, I could have done with what they did with it, but I also understand what they were doing and why. It was just a different element.
Ow!
Gosh,
yes, stop.
A different element, and it was an interesting take on it. It was just something different, but either way. I enjoyed it. I like it. I like the Injustice stuff. I haven't read a bunch of it. I've read some of the comics. I've never played the game. The game's like a Mortal Kombat fighting type game. So you can play any of the characters or whatever.
There you go.
Anyway.
Sit down.
So, but check out Injustice, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K now. I don't know. It may be on HBO Max already too, because it's on Warner Brothers. So usually by the time they come to Blu-ray and stuff, a lot of times they hit those. But I don't know if it's there or not. But anyway, check it out if you want to. Don't check it out. I don't care.
All right then.
I enjoyed it. If you like violent superhero movies, that's your movie for you.
You need to watch.
Moving on.
Next.
All right.
Okay, we finally got to this movie. We've been trying to watch it, I think, for like a month, and just never got to it. And then we were going to go one night, had tickets and everything, and I took a nap, and I kind of slept. Yeah, I kind of slept through that nap, and then you were like,
"Yeah." It became very clear she wasn't getting up, so they canceled the plans to go to the movie.
My bad. The Night House.
What's this movie about?
Okay, so this is the movie where the lady's husband dies.
Spoiler.
Dun, dun, dun. It's not a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you how or what. But
he dies of a bad case of death.
And then she finds some plans for a house across the lake that looks just like hers, but it's in reverse.
What?
And craziness ensues. She starts like having crazy visions, weird things. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like I got to talk about it, but I don't want to be the spoiler person.
Yeah, we can't spoil it.
But I mean, this movie's crazy, and in a way, a little bit disappointing because I was hoping it was going to be way more extreme than it was for me. I guess I think in my mind I kept building it up like, oh my gosh, something creepy, and it kind of was, but kind of wasn't. It was kind of just the normal craziness. And I had two theories as we were watching it, and it was kind of right, which is bad if I figured it out because normally you figure it out and I don't.
It's one of those.
Come on, man. We're talking about movies.
Yeah, somebody's in my crazy. I was with you as I was hoping for something that was a lot more like creepier
and more impactful.
I thought it was good, but let me say good. It's average. It wasn't bad. It wasn't horrible by any means. And I think that a lot of that has to do with her. She's really good.
She's good.
She carries the movie. And
we like her.
she brings all that emotion and that confusion. That she's kind of the audience.
She is. We're figuring it out along with her.
Yeah, but it didn't go the direction I thought it was going to. And then when it finally started to, it was a little more of a generic mentality of what they did with it. It didn't have a lot of the clever stuff that the trailer made me think I was going to get with the reverse stuff and the things you're seeing in the trailer. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be intriguing on how they connect them and seeing one thing happen and then simultaneously happen here and this. And none of that was really there. It ended up being something completely different, which again, it wasn't bad. It was just average best.
It's like a dark version of the Lake House with
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, Keanu Reeves and what's her name with the mailbox.
Oh my god.
Oh Lord. Anyways, it was okay. I did appreciate some of the creepy factors. At one point, I don't know if you can tell in the poster, but there's like an invisible hand. And so I thought some of that stuff was very clever, like the invisible figure talking to her, and then it touches her, and then it's like, ah! And I'm like, ah! It was one of those. So I did appreciate that whole part of it. I liked some of the creepy factor of some of these ladies that she finds that are somehow connected to this whole mystery of her husband. So that was intriguing. Similar. That was I'm like, okay. But where we go is in a completely different direction, so it's interesting.
It's not really where I thought we were going to go initially.
Well, that's where I ended up, and I was like, oh, I was right. That's too bad.
Well, I mean, I thought they were purposely
trying to throw us off with these ladies.
They looked like they were trying to throw us off, but it was exactly what they were telling us, and that's where I think it loses itself.
Correct. It should have been another layer to get there.
Yeah, you could have still given us and said, is that, but this is why, not this is why. Because if you're going to, in my opinion, when you do a story like this where it's pretty obvious what's happening and they're giving you they're spoon feeding you everything.
Yeah.
Give me something that either enhances the same story you're trying to tell me or that it throws that whole idea is built to tell you something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they tried because there's one line that she mentions early on, but like you said, okay, well, if that's where we're going, why did it wait 30 years to happen?
Malignant is kind of like that, where it actually builds you up to one thing and all of a sudden it throws a spin in it. Like it is, but it's not the way you thought.
Yes, like I kind of thought that, but then we're like, But
it's way more bizarre.
Yes, and that's what I think
And it's not something that works for everybody, but you've got to have that to really give it that punch at the end, and it didn't really have a punch. It had more of a... It had a tickle.
It had a little boop, boop.
It had a punch like it went, ah! What movie was that? Was it Anchorman 2? When the guy's like threatening to punch him, he's like, is that what? I think that's what it is. That's
that little brawl, the circle brawl thing with all the news.
No. It's early on when, if I remember correctly, when they're first trying to get him to come back. Remember they get in an argument and the guy just punches. He's like, I'm gonna punch
I just like that thing at the end where the different news in the Mexican news station shows up and
anyway,
it's
an okay movie. It's not as good as we had hoped, and
I'm okay that I fell asleep when we were gonna go watch it now.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's worth checking out, but just keep expectations low and just let it happen.
I like this lady. She's always good. That's all you need to know. Rebecca Hall.
I always want to say Rebecca Ferguson, but she's in the next movie we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So moving on.
Moving on to our next film.
So the next one is one of the most anticipated movies of last year. But it didn't come out last year.
As so many things are this year.
Yeah, almost every movie this year was the most anticipated movie of last year. But it's for the latest edition or latest version of Dune. Is it Frank Herbert?
No.
The writer?
Yep, that's who it is. Hi.
We're adding
You haven't
people
put
to
him
the
up
show.
yet, have you?
I am. I'm adding people
I'm not
to
ready
the
for
show.
him yet. I'm
Well,
still
too
setting up.
bad. Too
Get
bad.
rid of him. No, okay.
There.
So anyway, I have a guest, and someone jumped the gun and doesn't know how shows work.
I had to make sure it was working.
You make sure it works by bringing him on when it's time. I apologize for having to see this issue, little box person.
Oh, Lord.
I can go. Like, if this is awkward, I can just go.
We don't know. Hopefully you can hear him okay. If you can't, then I apologize. It'll be a waste of time. But this is our good buddy Sean. And we're bringing him in because he's actually a fan of said Dune, I believe, correct?
Hugely, yes. Big fan.
Okay. Well, to set this up for us is neither one of us read the book. I've never been able to get through the original movie. She's never seen the original movie. But I am a big fan of Denis Villeneuve, whatever his name is, that directed this new one. He did Arrival. He did Blade Runner 2049. I love his aesthetics. I love his movies. And I love the cast of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited to see this. I'm like, finally, something's going to make me love Dune. Because the idea is awesome. So I've got two different things about this movie now that I got to discuss.
Okay.
Before we fully get into it. First of all, I saw a screening earlier. And I'm sorry, Boxman, you're going to have to wait for a second.
Oh, my gosh.
I saw this movie previously by myself. And so the review you'll read on our website, there is a slight change to my opinion versus the review that's there now.
Do an update?
Maybe. I'm debating if I should. Don't y'all start, you fools. We have guests.
You're going to have to kick someone out.
We have guests.
We're going to have to kick the dog out.
When I first watched the movie, I thought it was beautiful. I thought the cast was amazing. I thought it was a fine movie, but I was horribly bored. She's right there. I was horribly bored, and it bummed me out because I wanted to love this movie. And I'm like, this movie is just so boring. But I was eager to see what actual fans thought. People that were connected to the source material and things like that. So we revisited it ourselves so the missus could see it. She's right now being a very bad dog catcher right now. She clearly, as you see, is the dog that she's chasing is now behind me.
I was thinking if I
she's
put
still
Vader
not on free.
out,
she's laying back down.
okay.
So don't you bother Vader. Get over here and sit down.
But he's the good dog,
well, then
so he'll be okay outside.
He shouldn't be made to suffer.
No, he'll be saved from the craziness.
Will not be made to suffer.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Anyway, so now after revisiting it, I actually liked it a little bit more, and I'll go into some of the reasons I think why and change it and all this good stuff. So anyway, let's dive over here. Before we hear your thoughts,
yes,
let's go to our guest, Sean. Hi, Sean.
Hi.
How are you? Sean's on the other side of the planet, like 15, 20 minutes from us.
Easily. Yeah, it may even be like 17 minutes. I mean, it's so far.
He's a famed voice actor. He's been in a ton of things you've never heard of.
Yeah. And
he's sitting in his fancy sound booth that he's at his studio in glorious LA.
Or Lower Garland. Yeah.
I'm trying to make you sound like you're more important, man.
I am not more important, but thank you for the effort.
Okay, well, never mind. He's a failed sound guy and average bass player.
Wow.
No, that's rude.
He's in a band. He's a voice actor. He's all kinds of stuff. So anyway, sir, you've read the books, correct?
I've read almost all of the books. I think there's a few of the newer ones. How many books
are there?
There's a couple dozen.
Oh my god.
Okay, so I wasn't sure how far that dived down. I've never paid attention. I know with the original movie, because it bombed so poorly, they scrapped all the ideas of the second, third, and fourth movies they were going to originally make.
Yeah, I mean, so Frank Herbert wrote, I think 4 or 5 before he died, and then his son picked up the legacy and continued it and wrote, many, many more, kind of just filling out a lot of the stuff from the past, the backfilling the history of the show and the movie and the books, and then pushing it out forward into the future. So it's
pretty much all the same characters and stuff. At least the ones that lived.
By and large, there's a couple of characters that persist throughout time, and I can't tell you who because some of them are in the movie that you just saw. But yeah, I mean, it builds on. So you may not see the exact same characters because some of the time spans are like 10,000 years. So obviously, most people are going to be dead, but some of the ideas of what carry on and the themes. And so you go, oh, they're talking about like the Bene Gesserit, which is part of the movie, the weird women, like that. Those people are still around 10,000 years from now. It's that type of thing.
So in all the books, are they all played by the same actors?
Yes, all the books have the exact same actors. Yep, it's amazing.
Do you like how they're very serious?
Yes,
Look at my
very,
faces. I'm acting.
very.
The aging technology is just amazing in 1965.
Okay, so what is your thoughts on the original movie? Like, not the review as a whole, but as a fan of the book and seeing the original movie. And I'm not talking about the TV miniseries. I'm talking about the David Lynch movie.
Right.
What is your thought on that movie?
So you almost have to have some cognitive dissonance between the book and the original movie. It was similar to the movie was similar to the book, but some pretty distinct differences. I happen to really like the original movie, although I recognize that it's kind of trash. Like, it's not a good movie. It's not, but I love it. It's like a cult classic to me. And I think a lot of people who do enjoy it for that purpose. It's not because it's great. It's because it's like, oh, look, there's Jean-Luc Picard, or hey, there's Sting, or look at the way they do their shields. They're all boxy and weird looking, and there's stuff like that that makes it kind of almost like comfort food, like like a gas station tortilla that you can get. But
this is the Sting with the winged thong.
Yes, yes.
I don't know if you know this or not, but Sting wanted to do that sequence naked.
Oh my!
And the studio did not want him to do it. They were against it. He was like, "No, I want it naked." So apparently, they built that winged thong thing like right at the last minute, right before they shot that scene.
Wow! Did not know that.
Did not
know that.
Sorry, all Sting Wiener fans, you didn't get to see it.
So I mean, yeah. So for me, the movie does have a place in my heart. I mean, but what they tried to do in the original movie, was, I think the scale was too big, because they tried to capture the entire book in that one movie that they made. And the way the book is written, we can get into that once you talk about the new movie. I won't get into it yet, but there's a lot of things that build in the book that really needs to be played out in the movie, so you understand what's happening and why.
So I mean, basically hearing that this new movie is running like the really long ass book, becoming a really long ass boring movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to ask you something else. Oh, did you also know that David Lynch supposedly, it's for you, turned down the offer to direct Return of the Jedi to make Dune?
I had heard that, and I wonder if he ever rethought that decision.
He has said, I've seen many interviews or read many interviews about him, that he considers this the worst film of his career. And refused it. So they said he would not be a part of when they did like a commentary anniversary thing of it.
That's too bad.
He doesn't want to have anything to do with that movie, as far as he's concerned. That movie, and he was signed apparently to direct the next 2 or 3, Dune Messiah and something else, and completely walked away from them.
That's too bad.
The trash. But apparently there was a lot of issues on set as well of making that nightmare. So before we get into your thoughts as a hardcore fan of the new one, which we also already know from the trailers, visually the new movie is stunning. It's big. It's epic looking. It looks convoluted. It's gray and it's brown, and that's pretty much it. Let's go to the Blakey over here that knows nothing about any of it.
I know nothing.
And what did you think of the new movie?
I enjoyed it. I think for me, not knowing anything about it, coming into it fresh, maybe it helped me in a way that I don't have any preconceived ideas of, hey, this is what the old movie did. Let's see how it compares. I just kind of came into it fresh. I would like to see a young Jean-Luc Picard, so I will have to watch it.
He has hair in that movie.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm blown
This
away.
is before Star Trek.
No, I'm blown away already. But I like this new movie. I think there are parts of it that are a little kind of slow. But I know. It's a little slow, but I think I understand that they're trying to ingrain us in the world, the planets, and we got to learn our characters and the history of people. Like, we're figuring it out as we go.
The entire movie is very much Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones world building.
Now, that's the other thing I did want to say. It is, to me, very Game of Thrones, because we have House Whoever and Emperor whatever and the planet names. And I'm like, I feel like I need a cheat sheet so I can write all this down so I can remember all the
I think names. I told you. Sean, did you see the original in theaters?
I don't remember. I don't think I did, though.
Because I know I've never met anybody that got one, at least to my knowledge. Sorry, the dog is leaning against the table and scratching, and now everything is shaking. But supposedly, back in the day, because of the convoluted nature of the movie, they handed out like information cards when you saw the movie
that would be so helpful.
The names and some of the language stuff that you may not understand,
Mm-hmm.
and who's who and the worlds, and so that it kind of, they understood that it was convoluted nonsense.
I think when you're reading the book, that's a good thing about reading the book, is like you can flip to the front to your cast of characters and be like, okay, I know who this is. You know, that's what I would need to do.
So with my revisiting it, I actually enjoyed it more the second time.
Okay.
I'm a little more invested to the point where I want to see what happens next.
Because they left us hanging.
Yeah, it just ends clearly just in the middle. It's like right as you're about to turn the page, the movie's over. And I really enjoyed it the second time. And I think part of the problem with me, part of it's my own problem, is me being partially deaf. And in the movie, you may not have caught it as, I'm pointing over, like you're literally over here. I'm going to point over here. I have a camera with you over here too. I don't know why you're only on this screen. I see you on this screen over here too. Part of it is they mumble a lot in this movie. And when they're not mumbling, there's this booming soundtrack. And they're not always overlapping. But if you're watching it at home, you may not see the same impact as when I saw it on the theater. It is big boom, it's like I was at a Too Short concert. And the mumbling, like,
they're whispering.
Yeah, so when I watched it at home, I got to watch it subtitled.
You're so funny. You're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense now. I'm like, did you just not watch it at all?
I did not realize how much I was missing, I think.
Hey, you need to get some hearing aids.
Because I'm hearing them talk, but I'm also hearing them like, okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go over here and you go dig in the sand and don't watch out for the worms. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm hearing. And there was elements. And then I also realized that because there's a lot of times where it drags on, like you said. It got super slow. And I think my issue hearing some of the movie and its pacing is so slow, and that I'm not already invested and connected to this material, made it hard for me to get into it. And I did not know until we watched the new film that I think I might have fallen asleep twice. Because there's scenes in the movie that I do not remember ever seeing. And I'm like, I must have.
Oh my gosh.
It must have been one of those things that I was like,
oh my gosh.
Because there's an entire dialogue sequence with with Oscar Isaac and the Blob and Batista and all them in the room, and they're talking, and I'm like, I didn't see any of that.
The Emperor guy?
The Baron? Yeah, I didn't.
Whatever.
I saw him when they came back in, and he's up in the ceiling in his blood. And
yeah, that was kind of weird. I'm like, what is that about? Why is he floaty?
I don't know. But so let's go over to somebody who stayed awake
somebody
during
who
it.
knows.
Mr. Sean. So what did you think of the new one, sir?
I loved it. I loved it because, again, one of the things about Dune as a series, as a book, movies, whatever, is that a lot of it has to do with the themes. It's not just the action of what's going on in the movie. It's about the themes that Herbert was trying to push forward. And so if you miss out, like in the original movie, they just couldn't dig into that stuff. They were trying to do so much that you couldn't dig into the themes of class warfare and religious things and, environmentalism and things like that he was really pushing in this book. So in this movie, while there were some slower patches, those slower patches were world building, kind of building out the need to explain why it was important to know that the House Atreides is different than House Harkonnen, because House Atreides are honorable people and they didn't want to, oppress. They wanted to help and enhance. They still wanted to get that spice, but they didn't want to, shove the people down, in order to get it. Whereas the Harkonnens didn't give a crap. They were just going to like, whatever, shoot them in the face. And some of that detail was missing in the first movie, and it made it just more like generic. If you go back and watch it, you're just like, oh, so these are the good guys and those are the bad guys because they're ugly. I can see clearly that they're bad guys. And, you just miss out on a lot of that.
I think the original Baron is way creepier than the new Baron, though.
Yeah, I would agree.
All his boils on his face and his skirts. The new is just fat.
Yes, and the flying thing is part of the character. He flies. He floats.
That's how. Does he just hover everywhere? Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's so heavy. His character's so fat and obese. He's supposed to be just not able to carry his own weight with his legs. So he just floats around. And like that scene you're mentioning, basically he did that to avoid what happened. Yeah, that boom, and then he shot up to the ceiling to get away from it.
Which is smart.
Which is why you see him the next time in the vat of oil.
Right.
See, that makes more sense because when I saw the original movie, and I remember I saw the oil sequence, and I remember, that's a big thing in the original movie too, and different versions of it. And when they're like, his healing is not complete, I'm like, what happened to this fool?
You
But-
missed,
I didn't catch that whole sequence.
you totally missed that.
The other thing too is that they actually changed the book a little bit because I'm changed the movie compared to the book, because even in the first movie, he didn't actually poison the Baron in the book or in the first movie. He actually poisoned the Baron's like right hand man, not the beast Raban, but it's a Mentat. It's the guy that sits next to him and
The
does
little
stuff.
priest
The
guy.
little guy.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
guy, Polka Dot Man from Suicide Squad.
Right. So that's who actually gets poisoned in the book.
Oh my gosh.
So is the character Sting plays the Baron's brother in the original, right?
He plays the Baron's nephew.
Nephew. Is his character not in this one yet?
So if they introduced that character in this movie.
He's what?
No, because that character's name is Fade,
Okay.
and Fade wasn't there. They only talked about Raban. That was Dave Bautista. Raban was
Didn't he
him.
call him Uncle too?
Yeah, they were both.
These were all-
Yeah,
That's what you didn't say they were all bald.
I know, I got that. Here's the thing. This is a random parentheses. That scene with the oil thing kind of had me panicking.
I
Like,
figured it
did
would.
he really sit in that oil and come up and then really go back down? Like, oh my gosh, I'm freaking out. I know it's not real oil or whatever.
Well, it kind of reminded me, made me wonder if they do the scene the same way they did in we just watched one of the episodes of the movies that made us, the Nightmare on Elm Street's bathtub sequence. Have you watched that?
no, I've seen some of those, but I haven't seen that episode.
They explain how they did the famous bathtub sequence where she's taking a bath and the claw comes up, and the guy that designed the glove is actually the hand in that sequence, and they build a bathtub that's like the standard bathtub, but then at the end of the bathtub it dips down, so there's a guy sitting in the little hole underwater. So when they say action, he goes underwater and he's sitting in the little drop off so he can lift his hand up. He's literally just holding his breath underwater.
Oh my gosh.
And then when they say
No,
cut, he
but-
comes up and he's between her legs. She's literally laying in the bed.
I know, but now they should be able to give him a thing.
That's
to
what I'm
bring
thinking, is I'm
underwater.
wondering-
But
Yeah.
still, it freaked me out because he comes up and he's got the stuff on his eyes. I'm like, oh my god, you're gonna go blind if it gets in your eyes.
Yeah,
I
it looked
don't-
like it looked like balsamic vinaigrette, though. I mean, honestly.
I
Yeah,
didn't say it wasn't.
I know,
probably
but
wasn't
I still
real.
I had a real panic moment about. I get weird about certain things, so thank you for knowing that.
No problem.
Anywho, okay,
So
go ahead. I was gonna tell you something really
does
important.
the beast? Oh no, Sean's gone. Oh, there he is. The
I'm right
beast
here.
character has a bigger portion in the second half, correct?
Yeah, he's fairly consistent throughout. Fade really comes more in the. So here's the deal. The deal is now that the Harkonnens have taken back over again, the way it's supposed to play out is the Baron is going to like set up the beast to take control of the planet and be like really, really hard on them so that he can then promote Fade as the more smooth talking political guy to take over and then win the support of the people of the planet. So he's kind of playing the two people off of each other. So he will have a more prominent role in the second movie, or should.
I think that's one of my issues with this movie is, again, it's not a bad thing, and I understand what they're doing, but there's always that fear because we've seen franchises not work, and especially now with the pandemic and the way box office numbers are doing, when you've made a movie that very specifically ends in the middle with no resolution, and there's characters that haven't done, like Batista does nothing in this movie.
Yeah.
And nothing against him. It's just what his character does. But I mean, like, you have somebody as prominent as him, you expect something from him at some point. And with the movie just ending, you're like, well, what the hell, man? I got a feeling of wasting my time.
Last year.
Usually with
Thank
movies
you,
like this,
sorry.
they at least give you some feeling of an end.
Yeah.
Even though
This
you know
one's
there's
just
more
like,
to come,
yeah.
there's some kind of a cap that make you feel like, okay, if they aren't able to make the next film, I feel satisfied with this element of the story. And
right.
I got that they were kind of ending it like that, where like,
He's like, I'm gonna go to the desert.
yeah, they could have
That's
ended it
it.
probably a little bit sooner where they've accepted him and you're one of us now. And then they could have ended it there. And then at least it would have felt like, okay, they're wiped out, but they've now joined the desert people and they're going to rise up and whatever. And you could have been done with it. But the journey into the desert with something else happening, you're like, all right, well, I guess we're not getting nothing.
Yeah, it was funny because I felt the same way, knowing that it wasn't a complete story. I kept waiting, like the end was almost spoilery to me because I kept going, okay, so this is when it's going to end, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it would, and then okay, so this is obviously where they're going to cut it right here, and I kept getting emotionally ready for the movie to be over, and it wasn't. So it was almost like they should have, to your point, they should have stopped it sooner, and then. If they weren't going to take them all the way to the Siege where they're going, Siege Tabor, his name, place where they're going. If they weren't going to take them all the way there, they should just stop as soon as the knife fight was over.
Yeah, yeah. So how did you feel about the casting as someone who knows the description of the characters in the book? I know that nobody's going to replace like Patrick Stewart or Sting or Kyle MacLachlan, but what did you think of the casting of these specific people?
I think they were age appropriate for one. Paul is a little younger than Kyle MacLachlan, who looked like he was 40 years old in the first movie.
It's way too old.
Right. So
no, but I was just telling you, you showed me a clip of the other. I haven't seen it, but
I showed her the trailer of the original.
This makes sense. He's a teenage kid, isn't that what he's supposed to be? So this guy's good.
Right, because he's this, his Messiah figure. I mean, that's the first movie, shows you that they're all like, hey, he might be that dude.
He's supposed to be called the Hakawaha.
The Kwisatz Haderach is what he will ultimately be called, but he'll be called Muad'Dib before he gets to that point. So
because I was just like the Hakawaha.
I had to hear that the whole movie. She kept, he's the Hakabaka, whatever.
Kwisatz Haderach. So
Haderach, Meshach, there we go.
Exactly.
And he's from Hackensack.
Kwisatz Haderach from Hackensack. Bring it back.
She doesn't know who Timothy Chalamet is, and she goes, "Who is this kid, and why do I care?" And I'm like,
"Am I supposed to?"
This kid was nominated for an Academy Award.
Oh my gosh! Let me go look. I apologize.
He's in everything.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet.
Okay. Anyways, everyone else. How does everyone else stand up?
I think they all played a role fairly well. I didn't see, the only thing that was weird was, so there was a character named Liet Kynes, the geologist that they go see, who's actually the black woman that's a Fremen that they talk to. Yeah. So in the book, that's a man. And it's not just that it's a man, like the gender swapping is whatever, but
it's because in the original movie, it was a man.
Yeah, well, in the book, it's a man, and that man specifically is the father of a character in the movie. So I'm curious to see, I can tell you because she's in the movie. Shani is the girl that Paul keeps dreaming about, that he meets at the end.
Yes.
So he keeps dreaming about her all throughout the movie. So
I don't mean to interrupt you, but that's another thing that kind of put me off. Even the second viewing is the editing on the visions and the dream sequence are not very good.
Yeah.
They're random and not in a way of you really get the vibe that he's having a vision. It's like there's sometimes he's in the middle of having a conversation and then it cuts to something over here and it cuts back to him and there's no. I know they're supposedly, I'm assuming, meant to be like it just suddenly hit him, but he's not reacting like he suddenly had a vision. He's just like,
maybe the guy is not good enough to react.
Yes, I'll have some beef jerky.
Yeah,
even of a desert woman.
I agree with you on that, especially the scene where they were trying to rescue the people and he's like in the sand and all of a sudden the spice hits him and he's just like,
Yeah. Can I also say I was very underwhelmed on how they did the blue eyes.
It was inconsistent.
Well, it was. They didn't seem to be. They weren't.
Sometimes it was the whites of their eyes, and sometimes it was their eyes. I felt like.
But it wasn't tonally dark enough as an artist to see that they did anything. Because sometimes it just looked like shadows.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing they did way better with the original. Is their eyes are bright ass blue in the original.
And they're always blue. It's not like when you have enough spice in your system that your eyes turn blue, they are always blue. It's not like they're blue sometimes. So there were a couple of scenes where people who were obviously Fremen, who should have had blue eyes the whole time, they were like white. And like I was sitting going, how come her eyes are not blue?
They turned it off and on.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like that's not a superpower. Like it's a condition. You can't control this. So that was weird. But I'm curious to see how that plays out with the gender swapping of that character who died, in this movie.
Yeah.
But is that person going to be her mother? Like I don't know how they're going to work that, but it'll be interesting to see.
Interesting. Well, like I said, I'm more sold on it than I was the first time. Yeah. Like I said, I think being able to read it and understand it, the understanding side of it was, but the pacing and stuff just set me off because there's a long time, even though there's cool aesthetics, and I couldn't even explain to you why it was boring me because there wasn't anything I hated about it. I love the visuals. I love the way what the director does stuff. I love his aesthetics and his soundtracks, and I love, the cast. And there's nobody I hate in this movie, and it was like, I don't know. It felt like it probably could have shaved about half an hour off of me looking at the desert, and that's it. Yeah. And then people walking, like how long do I need to watch you walk through the desert? I get it. We all know how the desert works. So when you look out in the desert, how many shots of just the sand dunes do I need to see?
But it was pretty.
They were pretty. It was beautiful.
The first 20 times.
I know. It's a lot.
And like with the worm stuff, I think they did way more build up. I love the way they did the worms in the movie. I thought it was cool, but it was like so much build up and very little payoff. Because we had to spend so much time. It was like, and some of their timelines of how far these people think distance is just bad. When they're like, "There's the sandworms. You got 5 minutes." I'm like, that worm is not 5 minutes away. That worm is like half a minute away.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that kind of annoyed me, and I don't think we got a really good payoff with the worm. There's the one moment where it comes up and it's kind of hovering over him. It's like, whoa, it was cool, but then I'm like, that's it.
There will be more in the second movie because there has to be, because they have to do there's a thing called worm riding that they have to learn how to do and all of that. Yeah. But so there will be more of it, but you're right. It's weird when if they're going to go to that point of showing it, like I almost wish they hadn't shown them at all, or just show them eating things, but not doing anything more than that, where it's a danger.
Yeah, well, see, that's kind of how that whole scene felt to me. Like, as exciting as that scene is, when the first time we see the worms and the spicing and what? What's happening? We see all this stuff, but it felt like, what was the point of this entire scene? It's like, yes, he has the moment where he's affected by the spice, and you have the moment you can see the worms, and you're seeing it's the action piece, and it's all awesome to watch. But when it's finished, I'm like, that was a good 5-10 minutes that served no purpose for the greater story.
Well, I think you can argue that the purpose was to show that the Harkonnens were really like trying to screw them over by jacking up all their equipment, and that there was no way they were going to be successful.
I know, but in this case, it was the worms destroying stuff, and you don't know the worms.
But because the thing couldn't pick it up, the carry-all couldn't pick it up because they sabotaged it.
Yeah, but we don't know that. They don't really say anything about the sabotage and something that's happening.
Yeah, but we know.
It could have been. That could have been a simple malfunction. That's what I'm saying. It's just that whole thing. They could have even talked about that and said, "Well, we lost the carrier today. We're sabotaged. The thing didn't connect, and the sandworm got it." I could solve that entire scene in one sequence, and then we would have been done and moved on. I love seeing the worms, but it was the drag on of how many times do I need to look at them through the binoculars? How many times do I need to watch that thing swing?
To see this happening,
just seeing fart poofs of sand.
Wow.
Come on, let's get to it.
Let's talk about something really important. Jason Momoa.
Thanks.
Give me a high five on that one.
I knew that's
Heck yeah.
We like Jason Momoa for very different reasons.
I do. I mean, look at this man. Look at him. My problem is that he doesn't have facial hair in this movie.
He
looks weird.
I know, but when he shaves it off, it doesn't work for me, right? He does look weird.
And that is the other part too. I was very bothered by that because there's no rhyme or reason. He suddenly just looks different.
I wonder if he went home one weekend and they were like, "Hey."
Well, no, I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Scott, but beat me up, Mr. Scott. He had been on this other place for a long time. Correct. By the time they get there. Yeah. It's not very clear on the timeline sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you see him, and then about 15, 20 minutes later, you see him again. There's no real specification on how long
it's been a while.
Like weeks, like several weeks.
Yeah. They didn't really specify how long it took for them to pack up and move and fly over there and this and that. The next time you see him, he's like, "Oh, by the way, I shaved."
Yeah, he looks odd.
It was weird. There was one other thing I just thought of it. So there's a very vital aspect of the book that they didn't really do anything with in this movie, and that's space travel. So they didn't do any space travel. Like they showed you a ship out in orbit or whatever and people flying it, but space travel is such a huge deal, and the people that do it are a whole class of people called guild traveler people. I can't think of their names right now. But they're not. I mean, yeah, but they're weird looking. They're all deformed because they take so much spice into their system.
That's a perfect example of what I was saying is they show the ship in space. Now space travel is implied, and we don't need to see all that.
But I know it's an important.
I know part of the story in the book is if it's important, but I'm just saying the generalization of that shows that you can easily simplify a scene and still make you understand and cut down on. Give us more space travel, less staring at sand.
I guess. Okay, what's up with the creepy witches?
The Bene Gesserit. So it is a female-only order. Basically, they're... So the one thing to keep in mind about Dune is that it is actually within our Earth continuum, but it's many, many thousands of years later.
Future, correct.
So the Bene Gesserit are basically the what remains of the Catholic Church. Okay? They are like nuns,
Nuns. Okay.
but they have powers, and they are highly influential as a
They're
political body.
They're more like the Sith sisters, Night Witches
I
from Star
gotcha.
Wars.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good comparison. They're not necessarily evil, but they're also not necessarily out for anybody else's good but their own.
There. Yeah.
So they do things in a political way to make alliances. That's why they're allied with the government and with the Harkonnens at the moment.
See, that's another element that you brought that up. There's not a very clear, definitive situation of you see the crazy lady with her veil and her needles. You see her with the thing, and you know she's connected to Lady Rebecca Ferguson.
Lady Jessica.
We're gonna call her Lady Rebecca Ferguson, and you know she's connected to her. But then also she's talking to Baron Fats a lot, and we don't really understand why are you suddenly talking over here? Did she betray her? Is that, like you're saying, they kind of deal with both sides for the greater good to their own agenda, but it's not really specified, at least not to what I understood.
It's weird because their whole deal is like the Bene Gesserits. Their whole deal is they're trying to make a Kwisatz Haderach. They're trying to make this Messiah figure, and they've got plans on how to do that, and it spans thousands of years. And so they have the ability, each person, when they can have children, and they can decide the sex of the child.
Right.
So they decide, like, no men, because we can't have a male child because a male child might accidentally be a Kwisatz Haderach, and we don't want it unless we're ready for it.
Right.
So they told Jessica, you can have a baby. Like, you can have a baby with homeboy, but you better not have a boy. You better have a girl, like we're telling you. And Jessica was like, nah, I'm going to have a boy because he really wants a boy. And so it jacked up all of their plans.
Yep. That's why they had that whole discussion of like, you chose to have a boy. Ooh.
Yeah. And so now they're pissed.
She has a lot of, even though she was, Senorita mumbles a lot. She was mumbling a lot. Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints. What the hell? I'm being attacked by a dog worm. She had to do a lot of like physical, like the moment when they're having their hand in the box stuff. You know, she's out there like writhing in physical pain from her emotions, and then what she's sensing as well, and what she's feeling that he's feeling, and all those things. And I thought all that stuff was really good from her.
Yeah, she's good.
All right. I was very disappointed. It was a missed opportunity for him to, when he's doing that sequence with the pain in his hand, to not go, "What's in the box?"
Oh my God.
I have my hand in a box.
There's so many levels you could have gone with.
Okay, I didn't get enough Oscar Isaac. I'm very upset about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, Leto has to die.
And then, I mean, we didn't
get
enough.
He has an epic beard, though.
Oh, it's so nice, right?
So well oiled.
Oh, nice. And then we didn't get enough Zendaya, but I'm assuming in the next one we'll get more.
Yeah, she's super important.
Okay. No barking. No. You have to take your dog away.
It's your dog?
That's your dog. I'm not claiming that dog. She cray. Anyways.
All right. So, verdict. Do you think how accurate percentage-wise do you think it is to the book?
85.
85? Oh, that's really good.
85%.
So you think his vision, not just the film itself, but his vision of the way they look, the ships and the world building, do you think it is pretty spot on for what you would have visioned as you were reading the book?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. Like I said, other than like the gender swapping, which again, I don't care about gender swapping, except I'm curious to see how it plays into the story.
Yeah, it's weird to gender swap something that's actually the gender's pivotal to what happens with the next character.
Right. That's why I'm curious. Otherwise, I wouldn't care at all. It wouldn't matter. But because that person was the father of the Zendaya, I'm like, then what are they gonna? So anyway, I'm curious about that. And then just some minor stuff that doesn't matter in the long run. I think they did a really great job of bringing his vision to life compared to the first movie, which was just doing some stuff. So
it was Flash Gordon.
Well, no, and you know one of the cool things that I like the personal shield things, because I saw that clip with all these like big box things. Now it's just very like.
Yeah, the shield stuff was cool. And the one thing I really enjoyed about this movie was they didn't try to upgrade the technology. That was a big thing in the book where technology was meant to be kind of anachronistic. It was meant to be analog, like it was in the movie. They have certain things that are advanced, like they can fly through space and they've got these shields. But if you remember, they were flying those ornithopters. Everything was like an analog dial and buttons and switches and stuff. There was no digital displays of stuff.
Can I just say, I want to see kind of maybe a spin-off short film on who fired the person that designed that shield, the body shields, because that is the stupidest design I've ever seen. Of it only defends if you swing fast, but if you go slow, you're dead man. We're like that's just a stupid flaw design. The same people that made the Death Star made that movie.
I think they explain it in the books where
The other way they
shield,
moved wearing it.
no, it was really more about ballistic. Think about shooting guns at somebody. Like they would stop bullets, no problem. But then they stopped using those weapons and started using blades again because then they could just slowly stick a blade through the shield. So I think there's a whole thing that happens called the Butlerian Jihad that I'm not going to get into.
The Butlerian Jihad?
Yes, it's a whole thing that happens where thinking machines rise up and take over stuff, and so technology takes a step backwards. And so that's kind of why they are where they are. They're able to do certain things, but not other things, even though they're way out in the future.
I got you.
Because Skynet is
That's
real.
cool. It was just one of those.
Yes.
It was just like one of those flaws in design. Like if you're gonna have something as cool as like I would almost not want to wear this shield. But like if we get close and you just go hee hee. But what's interesting is it actually on a fight side for people that may or might not know this, it actually plays up in the exact way of hitting somebody. Because if you're aiming at somebody holding their hand and you try to move your hand out of their way, like if you throw a punch at someone's hand, right? And you try to move your hand, right? So like we'll do it on camera. So I want you to move your hand when I get ready to punch. Okay. So you're gonna move it, right? Do it again. Right? Now move it slower. Right?
Okay.
Right. So if I punch slower, right, you move, I want you to move fast. Okay, I'm gonna punch faster. Move fast. Do it again. Right? Now I want you to move the same way. I'm gonna punch slower.
Okay.
Right? So I'm making contact more often because you're reacting to this, but the hand is more relaxed. So it's kind of the same way that shield works. Is if you move a little slower, it goes through it. So it's irritating that somebody designed something that's like, we already know that's going to get us hit, jerk. Let's like, give me two. I'd wear two of them. I'd go. So my shoulder would go. And so that would just be in a big dumb blur as I'm moving around.
But if you notice, not a lot of people were using guns. They were using daggers, knives, swords, because so the shields will work really, really well against a gun because the faster the projectile, the more it works.
I did dig the sequence when like the flying cockroach bumblebee thing.
Yes,
like,
the 100 Secret
sticks in the back of Oscar Isaac, but it's you can see how it stops and it's like slowly lodging its way through, and he's like It was like I thought that was a clever way of using it and kind of making you understand because the movements in the fights sometimes didn't legitimately fit the context of that idea. You know, because they'd be moving fast, but if they did an angle and they still fast, it still went through and didn't make a lot of sense. But also that's hard to make.
I saw the same thing. You can't be like, you know, it's hard to.
But I get that with the special effects and the way that works, it's hard to make that consistently accurate. But anyway, moving on.
All right. Well,
all right. So I actually think that the second film, if it gets made and if it works, I think it's going to be a case that, for me, the first movie will be made better by a really good second part. Hopefully, as a fan, it'll give you what you want. And then, would you want them to continue making Dune movies after this one? Or are all the books super long like the first one?
Yeah, but they get real crazy, man. Like you know, as the Atreides are the good guys right now. So things happen especially when you get to like God Emperor Dune. At that point, some crazy stuff starts happening. It would be very interesting to see how they could do that, especially with technology the way it is today for special effects. Because I mean, the main character of like God Emperor Dune, well, it's a worm.
Nice.
So
that'd be awesome.
Curious to see how they would do that.
It just baffles me that when they made this movie and when the director, I know he's not using the original for reference, but when you go back and you look at character comparisons, that Josh Brolin's character in this movie is Patrick Stewart's character in the other movie. I don't know if I
think Josh Brolin's a little tougher.
Yeah, I believe Josh Brolin in that role way more than Patrick Stewart, maybe. But he had a mullet in the original, didn't he?
Did he have a mullet?
Oh my gosh!
I think he did.
I have to see
actually
this movie
it's probably more
right
of a
away.
A skullet.
Like there's very like light on the top.
Oh my god!
Anyway,
we'll have to watch this movie right away.
Well, we have it in the living room.
Oh gosh, Virginia Madsen. Oh Lord.
All right.
We'll see if I can make it. All right. Thank you so much for joining our show today.
It's my
Thank you
pleasure.
for giving us the perspective of the fan of Dune, and it's these newbies that know nothing.
We know nothing.
Hey, fear is the mind taker. It's
All
from
right.
the movie.
Go back to taking the voiceover world by storm and playing the bass and capitalizing on someone else's name.
I will do that.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Peace and love.
All right.
All right, so
That was a good discussion.
All right, so moving on. So now that y'all know, we got two aspects. We firmly believe in giving everything a chance. And like I said, I don't know if I want to redo my review because I'm not totally changed where it's not still a little boring to me, but I did connect better with it.
It's just a little long.
Yeah, I did connect better with it. But it's also one that I was really curious more about how hardcore fans were going to connect. And really that's what matters. Because this is a movie, when you have a fan base, if your fan base connects with it, then that's really, to me, all that matters.
That's what really matters.
You know, as financially, they wanted to connect with everybody. But it's the fans that are the most important for that kind of thing. So.
All right. Let's get to some stuff here.
Oh.
What do you want to talk about? Because we got to wrap it up. These dogs are getting restless.
Coming out next week, then?
Okay.
Next week is not a... Okay, now we're getting craziness. Come here.
I'm telling you, they're getting
next
restless.
week is kind of a small week. There's a limited edition of the movie Deep Red coming out. It's a horror film of some sort. I haven't seen it. I believe it's Dario Argento, or whatever his name is. Who's awesome. Don't Breathe 2 is coming out to Blu-ray.
Breathe out.
Lights Out, Breathe
Lights
Out.
Out, Breathe Out.
Inside joke. The Suicide Squad is coming out. James Gunn's movie is coming out with all kinds of bonus features. And that's pretty much it. Blood for Dracula, which is an old one, is coming out on Blu-ray. And that's pretty much the only big stuff coming out.
Coming out at the movies. Wednesday, coming to Netflix, there's this movie called Hypnotic. It's, I don't know, this lady's going to a world-renowned hypnotherapist, but after a few sessions, some unexpected and crazy things start to happen. Also coming out Wednesday in limited release. If this is near you, please go watch it. It's called Passing. It's about this black woman who finds a friend that she lost touch with who is passing as a white lady. It's got Forrest Whitaker, Ruth Negga, Alexander Skarsgård. It's going to be good. All right, that's Wednesday. Friday, the big one that I know everyone, especially this dude right here, is waiting on, Antlers.
Oh, I've already seen it. I can't wait to talk about it.
I feel like it's a Wendigo type thing.
It is.
Okay.
That's a simple way to talk. It's a Wendigo legend.
It's the one in the commercial where the little boy has a creature hidden in his house that he's feeding.
It is.
Yeesh.
Something else.
How's Carrie Russell?
Produced by Guillermo del Toro.
Okay, how's Carrie Russell in this? Is she
Very
good?
good.
Okay, I love me some Carrie Russell. Coming out nationwide, this is the new movie with Amanda Seyfried. It's called A Mouth of Air. It's about this lady who is writing books, childhood books. No, sorry. She's writing a book about unlocking childhood fears. But as she does that, dark secrets in her own past start to reveal themselves. It's really interesting. I'm looking forward to this one. I don't know if anyone else is. And Last Night in Soho, it's got Anna Taylor-Joy, who most people remember from the chess movie or the TV series, whatever that was called. Queen's Gambit. It's about this girl who moves into an apartment that another girl used to live in, and she starts having memories and visions of this
All you
girl's
need to know
life.
is Edgar Wright's new movie.
It looks crazy.
Do you know
and
who
fun.
Edgar Wright is?
I don't know.
He's the director that did Baby Driver. He did
Hey,
Shaun of the Dead.
That's good.
Hot Fuzz.
Okay, I'm in. It looks interesting. It's a little murder mystery. Okay, nationwide, My Hero.
No, it's anime. We don't care about that movie.
I don't care, but some people might. My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission. It's about these
It's an
people.
anime based on My Hero Academia.
Okay, fine. They're trying to stop some crimes.
If people know it, then they'll care. If they don't know it,
And
they're
his
not gonna
friends
watch
are being, accused of something they
Nobody's
didn't
gonna
do.
watch it if they're not
Okay,
already.
limited.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Netflix, An Army of Thieves. This is a prequel to Zack Snyder's Army of the
is
Dead.
that already coming out?
It'll be on Netflix this Friday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there you go.
It's following the kind of the funny blonde guy.
Yes.
It's focused on him, I think.
Oh, okay. So that's what's
All
happening.
right, so that's the bigger stuff. And lastly, let's talk about what we got given away here.
Give it away now.
So why don't you just throw them up on the screen? We got some still existing ones, some that are wrapping up, and some that are brand new. We still got copies of Emperor's Sword, which is a decent martial art flick. Then we have God of War 2, it exists.
Do I need God of War 1?
You do not.
Okay, good.
We're giving away copies of the Suicide Squad, so make sure you get on there for that. Of course, we still have copies of Clockwork Orange on 4K. And we got a couple more copies of Space Jam: A New Legacy. and of course, I think one more copy of Shawshank Redemption 4K.
Yeah.
So those are the big things we got given away. We got a couple more coming up this week, and that's it.
All right. Well, that's all for today's show. Thank you so much for hanging with us. I know it was a little bit long, but we had a lot to talk about. We will see you next week at the same time, same channel.
I'm going to say hopefully we'll be here next week. Next week is AllCon.
Oh, goodness.
So there'll be some possible live video updates. I don't know.
We'll try
it's going to be hectic because I'm going to be running some other stuff. But if you haven't been to AllCon, you should go. This is like its 15th, 16th, 17th year, whatever it is at this point.
We've been to them all.
But I'll post a little link to it of the information. It'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Normally it's a 4-day show. They're doing some Thursday events at night. Big runs 24/7. And ironically enough, I was at AllCon in 2020 in March. And the first day there is when they made the announcement that everything was shutting down. So I had to pack up my stuff and left.
Crazy.
So it's kind of fun that this is also my first convention back. I've gone to a couple of conventions, but this is my first setup back, is right where we left off.
And that's where you want to be. That's where we give away a lot of posters, a lot of swag.
We have a big box of
stuff.
Blu-rays, DVDs.
Didn't somebody just send something to one of the studios?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 studios that are going to be set up. Either set up with tables or they're going to be walking around. One studio will be promoting Antlers.
Nice.
I believe they're going to be giving away shirts.
Get me a shirt.
And
I love T-shirts.
And we have another one. The PR people are going to be promoting the new Scream movie. So I don't know if they're going to have what kind of swag they're going to have.
Get me something.
It's all free swag.
I may or may not be there all day.
Usually it's all free swag. So I know Raymond's going to be out there.
I'm babysitting.
Raymond's going to be out there on Sunday.
Raymond better hook me up. I'll be there Sunday.
Sunday will be there Sunday doing Antlers.
I'll be there
I believe.
Sunday.
I think that's who they're sending.
Okay.
So anyway, we have a couple people coming out there. We've got hooked up with that for them. And that's not what I asked for them, but that's what they're doing. But we have a whole box full of Blu-rays and DVDs that were all supposed to be given out at the last AllCon. So there's some box sets of stuff. There's a bunch of older stuff. I had to get rid of a bunch of stuff out of there that were like digital codes that I don't think are good anymore because they were over a year old.
Well, and if you're in the Dallas area, come on Sunday to Superhero Sunday. We organize and run that, and everybody wins a prize. We give out tickets, and we call numbers in between things. Everybody wins something.
If you have cosplay, you can come and compete. They give out trophies. But yes, we give away Blu-rays, DVDs,
just to
posters.
the audience, just for showing up.
Yeah, just for being there. Everybody gets a ticket. We draw them randomly throughout the show, so we try to give away a bunch of stuff for everybody. And I prefer to come home with less than I went out.
Correct.
So if you stay long enough, sometimes I just say, come up here and get stuff. So just saying.
Just saying.
Go to the website at all-con.org, I believe it is, or it might be .com now.
Let me find the link for you.
Pull it real quick.
all-con.org.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop a link here in the chat.
I know it's Halloween weekend, but give you something else to come do. They have a dealer room. They have the Artist Alley hallway that I'll be set up in. Then they have all kinds of various game shows. I think they have a room with miniature golf this year.
Oh, my gosh. I want to go through the escape room.
They have escape rooms. They have all kinds of stuff to do, and it's all inclusive with the ticket to get in. So it's a fun little event. It's at a new hotel this year, so go to the website, look it up. Sadly, the hotel they've always had it that we love, our home, AllCon home, has shut down during COVID.
They didn't survive the pandemic.
But anyway, that's where I'm going to be this weekend. I'll be there all weekend. She'll be there at least by Sunday.
Yeah, I got to work. I got to babysit. I have so much going on. Yeah. Why didn't I take Friday off?
I know. I asked you and you didn't do it.
I don't know why.
You go, I don't need to take Friday off.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Anyway, and then Sunday night, the plan is hopefully after that I'll be home fairly on time to be able to do our normal show. We may have to do a show late or we may have to do it Monday. We'll just see how it plays out because sometimes we have people that come in town sometimes, and so we might.
Oh, it says we're going to be in the lobby room.
For what?
Superhero Sunday.
Well, a lot of it says lobby, so I don't know.
No, maybe it's lobby area.
Yeah, I think it's Amethyst is down by the lobby as opposed to like
no, whatever. Who knows?
Anyway,
just come see us.
We'll hopefully be back with our show because we got a lot to discuss.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.